Hey guys, it's Maymay and we are back with this mini album today, and we're gonna do some more assembly line work. When I make a mini album, I always like to get all my kind of assembly line work done before I go to like the decorations. So let me show you what I've done. I cut down several, like 3 pieces of 8.5 by 11 paper down to 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 squares. If you've watched any of my mini albums, you probably know exactly why, and here's the reason. I'm going to use this little photo frame. I love to use this stamp in my mini albums. I think it's cute, and it also tells people where to put pictures, because a lot of times when you give these mini albums away, people are like, I don't know what to do with this. But if you do this step, they'll know. So I've got my Place Photo Here stamp from Action. This set is called Action, and this one's called Oh Snap, and I've got my photo frame from it, and let me show you what we're going to do with it. All right, so I've got my mini Misty, and I've put one of those 3/4 by 3/4 inch square pieces of paper in this corner, and I'm going to line this stamp up to where I want it to go. And I actually might even cut this down a little bit more, but I'm going to stamp it first. So I'm going to run this stamp to this far corner, just like that. And then I'm going to put the Place Photo Here stamp in the middle, wherever I want it to go. And remember, this won't matter too much because when they actually put the photo in there, that'll get covered up. So just kind of in the middle, but don't stress if it's not perfectly straight. And it picked up my paper too, but no big deal. I'm going to press these down to make sure they're on good. And then I'm going to put my paper back in. Now, I noticed that I had some room on the edge to hold this paper down, and I may have to do this twice, so I want to make sure I hold this paper in place because we may have to ink this twice because I'm using 2 stamps, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes they're a little uneven. Now, for my frame, I'm going to use my VersaFine ink. I just think it's a really good, thick, black ink, and it'll work really well for this. And so I'm going to ink this guy up over here really nicely, and then I'm just going to close it over. Now the thing is, I'm going to be making a bunch of these because I'm going to go ahead and make probably more than I need for my album. But by doing it this way, I can just put this paper in and flip and go. So like there's one done, move it to the side, let it dry, bring another piece over, put my magnets on, ink up my stamp, and just keep going and just push these out. Like I said, I'm probably going to make too many, but that's okay because I can always use them in another album. I can use them on a card. I can use them any old place. So you can see here in just a few minutes, I was able to get a bunch of these guys cut, stamped, and ready to go. Again, it's way more than I need. Let's go back to the album. So inside this album, we made these tags. Remember, we did 3 of them. This one, and this one. By the way, if this is your first time here, I'll have links to the original video and everything for this below. So let's work on these guys first because there's 3 of them we need to create. I want to put one of these Place Photo Here stamps at the bottom, but I also want to decorate this little tag a little bit to make it cuter than that because that's kind of just boring, just that, right? So I'm going to go back to my Christmas papers and decide what I want to put here on the tag, and we're going to mat that tag. So I was sent this by a subscriber. This is a Christmas stack of paper, and it is actually printed paper, and it's single-sided paper. Let me show you what I'm going to do. As you know, I was using, or am still using, this small 6x6 pad for the main portion of my book. However, these colors work just fine, and they are single-sided paper. Now I'm going to totally mat this tag, so I want to measure it because I have forgotten what it is. I need to cut this mat at 3 1/2 by 5. So now I know that portion of it, 3 1/2 by 5, and I'm going to cut this paper down to fit that. So now that we've got our paper cut, we need to mimic these corners that we put on our tag before we glue them together. If you try to do this with them glued together, you won't get the same look because the angles will only be on the tag itself and not this paper that's sitting on top. So there's the angle punch. Now let's do the corner rounded portion. Just a reminder, at this point, I am putting supplies in the description box. I have not always done that very well, but I am making sure I put supply lists for you guys. So anything I'm using that you have a question about, check down there and make sure that I don't already have it listed for you. So I got my art glitter glue, and I'll put a thin layer. Let me talk to you about art glitter glue and paper. You don't want to put this on super thick on paper. It's still liquid onto paper, so it can make paper weak or buckly. I don't tend to have a problem with it because I'm not very heavy-handed with it when I'm using paper like this. So just make sure you don't overdo your glue. So there's one tag matted. I'm going to flip it over and do the other side. And you can see here that all of our corners match up correctly because we did them after each other, and all of our rounded edge matches up correctly. So there's one tag done. I'm gonna do that to the other two. Now you can see why using paper on these tags is a perfect idea because we have the cardstock as a base. I wouldn't use just paper to make tags. You need something a little sturdier. So now that I've got these done, let me flip them where they're three different looking this way. Let's put our little photo frames on here and see how cute these will be sticking in our little book. I'm gonna glue these straight down to the page. I don't use dimensional pieces on tags and things like this because these are gonna slide into pockets. So you don't wanna have any foam tape or anything that could catch on those pockets when the recipient or when you slide your tags in. Now I've got my little photo tags matted on both sides with the photo option little frame there. And now I'm going to put a hole in the top for whatever I'm going to put there to pull them out. I don't know if I'm going to put ribbon or baker's twine or what just yet, but I went ahead and put them all together and just punched them all at the same time with my Crop-A-Dile. That's another tool that we're using today. And so they are ready to go. Let's put them back in the book. So our first tag spot is here. Look how cute that is sitting in there. I love it. Our second tag spot, remember, is this pocket in the middle of our pages. Just going to stick that guy down in there. And then we have one more here. And see how that can kind of catch? That's why we don't want to use anything dimensional. If you use something dimensional, you'll really have a problem with that catching. But it does eventually work itself out. But just make sure you're not using foam tape in this sort of situation. So now we have three little tags ready for photo frames, and we have all these guys that we've already made. Now this is where I typically run through and see where I want to put them and kind of look at how many I'm going to need. So I'm just going to look through all of the pages that are solid. Like this is a solid page. I want to see how many I can put on this page together. See how cute we can make this? We can put these like this. And the other thing we can do is adhere these down so that a photo can slide underneath there so they can still put a picture there but still get two on this page. So I'm going to look at that sort of thing. But listen, if you don't have this stamp set and you don't want to use this kind of image, you can also just put little mats here and just write place photo here for the recipient. So you could do the same thing, two little pieces of your cardstock like this and write place photo here, and it does the same thing. You could even draw your photo frame if you wanted to. I just love having this stamp set for mini albums. Same thing here. I've got a place for lots of them, so I could put two of them here in a different way, something like that. Wouldn't that be cute? So I'm going to run through the album, and anywhere I have that kind of space, I'm going to go ahead and put these guys down. Now before I do that, I want to talk to you about one more thing. This is a very busy piece of paper, and if I put this little guy down here, I kind of lose him in all of that. So this is a place where you could take some more paper and mat this little guy so he'll pop, or even put a strip to kind of put him on. So I'm going to play with that too as I go through, and anywhere I think they get lost in my background, I'm going to just cut a mat 1/4 of an inch bigger so it will really pop. Now I'm going to do this with my Perfect Mini Layers. I've just glued this piece down to a piece of red cardstock, and I'm just going to run around the edges of it using this little ruler, and I'm going to slice it out of there so I can get a mat. If you're interested in this ruler, I have a tutorial on it on my channel. I'll link it too below so you can see how this guy works. But it makes matting things so easy. Even though this is just a little square that I probably could have just measured and done, this is just super quick and easy, and I didn't have to measure anything. So you can see here he's matted, and when I put him in now, he really pops on that busy page so he doesn't get lost, and that's kind of what I was looking at. So anytime you get to this point and you're like, you know, that's really not going to show up very well, mat the item with a solid color, and it kind of breaks up the image and causes your eye to be able to see it better. I know that sounds crazy, but it really does do that. Flatten that so I can get that on there good. We still have plenty of room on this page for pretty little decorations of some sort, which we'll get to. All right, so I'm going to flip through, and let's do this page now. And these guys really don't need to be matted. They can just go straight on. So I want to do this page with you because we're going to do the two like we talked about, remember? And I told you there's a way to do your glue so that you can still put a photo back there even though these overlap. Watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to glue this guy into place first. And I'm going to put glue all over the back of him so he will stay in place. And remember kind of your dry run. You want to remember where he needs to live on the page. So I just kind of made a little mental note, close to here, and I know the other one's going to fit that way. So I'm going to glue him in. Now this guy I'm going to glue here. And what I want to do is only glue the top inside this area and leave this little section right here open so the recipient can then, I'll show you what they can do, they can take a photo and slide it underneath here and still be able to put one in that little mat, okay? And they won't have to cut it funny. So I'm going to put glue along this edge, a little in this area, and a little at the bottom. Now when I put this down, kind of remember where I had it, I won't be gluing it shut on this edge so they can still slide a photo under it. So now I've got it glued down in such a way they can take their photo and slide it under there and adhere it down. I like that idea, right? So we can still overlap our little photo frames, which I think are super cute. All right, I'm going to keep going, adding photo frames much like that. For this page, I actually trimmed the photo frames out right to the edge of the stamp. And when I do that, I can get 2 on this page and still have some of the paper showing behind each one as well. So you can see here I just trimmed all the way down to the picture instead of leaving any matte edge around it. That's going to work perfect on this page. Now you might not be a square person or a rectangle person, and you might want circular photo frames. That's a perfect idea. Dig into your die stash, use your electronic cutting machine, do anything you want here and make shapes for people to put their photos on. This is just a guide so you'll know where the photos will live. Now, just doing that little bit of work, I can already feel some bulk building up in my album, and that's good. It's also going to help us when we get ready to do this closure. I'm not going to do this until I have all of my goodies in here, so I'll know just how thick I'm going to be making this album, so I'll know where and how to do this closure. So what I think I want to do at this point is decide how I'm going to do these inserts. I'm probably just going to mat them with paper, just like I did these tags. Because I think that won't add too much bulk. So what I'll do now is go through that same paper pad, find some pattern paper to put on here, and get these guys matted. I've seen a lot of people talk about their wet glue makes their paper buckle, and it's kind of hard to avoid that, especially when we're using this much glue on a piece of paper, this much surface space. So you can use your sticky tape here. This would be a good place for that since we're using paper on cardstock. I tend to have pretty good luck with the art glitter glue though, as long as I don't over wet my page with it. So I have to just kind of put a thin coat, and I know it looks like I'm using a lot, but I'm really kind of scrubbing the page and putting a really thin bead of the art glitter glue on. So that tends to help me not get too much buckling and too much issue from it. You can also use your fine metal tip at this point. I'm not using mine because I'm kind of mixing a lot of glue with a little glue in this album, so I'm not using my fine metal tip at this point, but you can if you want to keep that on there for this, and that'll keep you from over wetting or over gluing the page. So there is 2 done. Now I've got all of my inserts covered, and I'm going to go ahead and put them back inside here, just like so, into every one of the pages. Lift that up. I'm not going to be adding anything to pull these because I think that decorative edge is plenty for that. So I'm not going to be adding any tabs or ribbon or anything to the end. They're going to be real simple. I'm also not going to put these guys in here. And the reason is this is a much bigger space, and the person or myself could put much bigger pictures here. So instead of confining them to the smaller space with that stamp, I'm going to leave that more open so they have room for larger pictures on those mats. Just think, they'd be able to get 8 pretty large pictures in there. All right, so now we need to look at this guy. And I think I'm ready to at least put paper on him at this point, but I'm not ready to do my closure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some paper, but first I want to glue this little flap down. So if you started with me in the beginning, you probably don't have this little flap glued down yet either, and I'm going to do that real quick. This is just that little extra piece that we glued down when we assembled this album, and I didn't do it to this particular bag, so now I want to make sure I do. And I also feel like this end flap has gotten a little bulky as I've been working. So I'm just going to take my bone folder and really squish it down, flatten it out really well. So let's talk about this flap just a little bit. I want to sandwich it closed just to get rid of the paper bag look. That's all I want to do to start with. I have an idea in my head for how I'm going to do the closure on this bag, but I'm not 100% sure. So what I want to do is just go ahead and close this end up and start the creation of the flap. I'm going to use black cardstock for this only because I want to seal this in here and not see the paper bag anymore. So our flap will then look like cardstock. It's confusing right now, I get it. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to use our sticky tape here. I'm not going to use my wet glue. I think I can get right up to every edge using the sticky tape. So this is where I'm going to use this, and I'm going to run it around I mean, right at the edge of this bag, because I really want to sandwich this in and make sure it stays completely hidden. And I'm not going to be shy with it. As a matter of fact, you could use a full sheet of sticky here. I'm out of my full sheets. I need to order some. But I'm just going to run these little strips all the way down. Remember, this looks like it's overkill, but this is an album you want to last forever. So for me, I always kind of do more on the adhesive than I probably need to. But I want it to last, you know, a really long time as people look through it at Christmas and the holidays or whenever you're making your album for. The worst thing in the world is to hand somebody an album and go, oh, look what I made. And as they're opening it, a piece falls off or something like that. So I try to go a little overkill. Now that I've got all that adhesive exposed, anytime you've got these little pieces hanging off the edge where you just didn't get it perfect, just fold them back over. They'll be fine. They'll go into the little cardstock sandwich we're making. I'm going to put this black cardstock right at that flap fold and just stick it down. Now I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to do the same thing here. And this time I'm going to seal this extra piece. Did I tell you about measurement? Let me tell you how I measured it. I don't think I even talked about it. So let's talk about it here. I measured this guy and added about 1/4 of an inch, possibly a tiny bit more, but about 1/4 of an inch in length, so I could seal the cardstock to itself and not have a thick edge. So the cardstock's going to sandwich that in. Now for width, I cut it exactly the width so I could just hide that paper bag, okay? So I'm not leaving any paper bag shown on this one. We're sandwiching it in there completely. I'm going to show you guys a tip I learned at a card party. This last strip right here, I'm going to take this edge and put it right to the edge right here, okay? So starting at the edge, I'm going to roll it out to the end, and if you want a perfect trim on the edge, take one of your acrylic blocks and just lay it there and pull it up, and you get this perfectly straight trimmed edge. You can also do it with your ruler. You can lay your ruler down there and do it, but I'm lazy. So I do that because I'm not going to see it anyway, but it is a great way to get a nice straight edge. And then the same thing, we're going to sandwich this one closed right to that edge. And then down to the other cardstock piece that we had. So it's literally sandwiching that flap inside, okay? Now I'm hanging off just a little bit right here, and I'm not going to stress, I'm just going to trim that away. So my cardstocks didn't match up exactly perfectly. And remember I told you that can happen with these sandwich bags? Because they're not perfectly square. So you can get a little piece you need to trim off here or there. Can't see it good with that one. Let me get my other ruler. You can see it better with this little thin metal. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to trim that away. And see, it was just this tiny bit we were off, and that happens with paper bag minis. They're not perfectly square, so you're going to be off here and there. All right, so now then, let's close this album. This is going to become the beginning of our flap. But see how square and how stiff it is now? We got to bend this guy. So there's a couple of ways to do it. One is just take your hand and kind of work it. That's the first thing I'm going to do. Just kind of work it around like so. And let the heat of your hand kind of do that. I don't want it to be a flat, square fold. So I want it to be a little rounder. So I'm going to take this little round container I have from my craft room, and I'm just going to kind of roll this in here. You could use a glue bottle or anything you've got that's kind of the shape you want. I'm just going to roll it a little bit. This is just changing the fibers of the paper, and it's just going to allow it to get that bend we want it to have. I'm not really worried about this edge bending, just kind of the middle section here. Now I'll give you a little sneak peek. I am thinking about doing a belly band to hold this guy shut because of the way that flap is. I just think a belly band would hold that really well, and I wouldn't have to stress about adding magnets or any kind of like piece here to hold it. I just think a belly band is the perfect way to hold this guy shut, and I like how that is going to turn out. Plus, it's stiff because it's got that flap in it. So I'm thinking a belly band wrapped around here is the perfect way to do it, but I've got something in mind for that. So I've heard from you guys that a lot of you are kind of following along as I make this. So this is where I'm going to stop today. The reason is this is a good bit of work. It might not feel like it in video because I cut away and did a lot of the assembly line work. But if you get to this point by Wednesday, we'll be able to start on our closure and come back in here and add some cute little decorations and things because I think it needs some more goodies in here. And you never know, we might find a place to stick another tag or make a little interactive something. You just never know. All of that is to be seen. Even I don't know. I'm designing this one as we go. So there's the beginning. I keep looking in the camera and getting that crooked, so I'm going to look straight at it. So there's the beginning of our album. Oh, I do know one thing I want to do. I want to round these corners. So let me do that real quick too. I just think this will look better with a rounded corner than that just perfectly square piece. This is another reason why you want to make sure you have that adhesive all the way to the edge, because when we round it, it'll hold it in place. So now when we come around, it looks a little cleaner, a little nicer. It's kind of cute, and I'm liking it a lot. I have to hold it shut, but that's okay. We'll get the closure done, and we'll be doing a lot more to our mini album. I hope you're enjoying it. I surely am enjoying seeing the photos of the ones you've got so far done and getting to the same point that I am to make your album. If you're making this guy along with me, let me know in the comments. I love to hear that if you guys have tried it or if you plan to try this one. This one's going to be really cute. If my plan for here works, it'll be super cute. We'll see how that goes. Thanks so much for watching today, guys. I'll see you again on Wednesday as we continue this album. And I plan for Wednesday to be the final video for this. So if you get to this point, you should be able to close it up by the weekend. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.